Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Tonight I want to welcome Gary Robusto. He has been a paranormal researcher for 24 years and is the founder of the Tri-City New York Paranormal Society and the New York Bigfoot Society. He has been featured on the Discovery Channel, History Channel, Nat Geo, Travel Channel, Destination America, along with international TV. Gary, welcome. How you doing tonight?
What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to tonight. Before we get started, I do want to thank My Patriot Supply. I mean, if you look around at the world today, it's a different place, and we may not see our old lives anytime soon. And the possibility of food shortages in the near future is becoming more likely. Be prepared. Make tomorrow's survival your top priority today by getting an emergency food supply. I use My Patriot Supply. They are the go-to experts in emergency preparedness. Right now, you can get $100 off a 4-week supply and $70 off a 2-week supply of their awesome food, and it lasts 25 years in storage. And it gets shipped right to your door. Just click the link in the description, preparewithfkn.com right now to get your emergency food supply. Now, Gary, I've only done a handful of shows discussing Bigfoot and Cryptid, but I thought it was definitely time to do another one because the more I look at the connections with Bigfoot, cryptids into ufology and paranormal, the more I think we need to look at the phenomenon because I know it's all connected, and I think we can learn from it to understand the nature of reality as a whole and what the hell's really going on, you know? And who better to talk about it than you? First, I want to know how you got interested in the field in looking into paranormal and cryptid beings.
Well, I've been a paranormal researcher now, I say for 24, going on 25 years. I got into it because I grew up as a psychic child in an Irish Roman Catholic home. So put those two together and yeah, no. And an Italian home, all right? My mom is Irish, my dad is Italian, 100% on both sides, so you can just put that together. So as I was talking to, my great-grandparents who I wasn't supposed to be talking to, things like that, me and the belt and we're best friends, all right? That's just the way it was back in the day. So as I got older, I started ghost hunting and I hate to call it ghost hunting, but at a very young age, around 14 and 15, I started looking into it. I bought my first cassette tape player, the mini cassettes, back in the early 90s, and started just, going to some abandoned locations, around the places I lived and things like that. And then, I kind of grew into it a little bit more, decided to try to, take my psychic abilities that I had and make them better, I guess, and really hone them in. So I joined together with a psychic that is very prominent, okay, and just worked on it. And then kind of from there, started some paranormal teams and things like that. And now here I am. So in the paranormal world, Bigfoot's a little bit different, but with paranormal, that's how I got involved.
How about Bigfoot? What got you interested in the whole Bigfoot phenomenon?
Yeah, the Bigfoot phenomenon is fascinating. I'm a mountaineer. I do outdoor stuff. I'm a rock climber. I do all that fun stuff in the woods in the Adirondacks up here in New York and the high peaks. So I'm in the woods all the time. I do bushcrafting, survival stuff. I enjoy those things. So, as a paranormal researcher, we do look into cryptids. We do look into ufology and things like that. Also, my Tri-City New York Paranormal Society does all the above. We look into all things. Well, then what I started doing is, I started hearing about the Bigfoot encounters. I've always been interested in monsters. I've always watched them on TV and things like that, but I never really went past that. So I was like, well, you know what? Let's start really looking into this phenomenon. I mean, Whitehall is only an hour and a half, 2 hours from where I live, which is, the Bigfoot capital of the Northeast. Everybody knows Whitehall, New York, and the famous sightings coming out of that town. So then we started looking more into the Bigfoot phenomena, and we started coming across many witnesses and that were coming to us and talking about it. Then we started getting into the woods and our research areas that are very active, and been pulling out a lot of evidence and a lot of different things from these areas. And, I I just went with it. And then I was very blessed. I ended up, getting called for the America's Book of Secrets on History Channel. So I did that TV show, the Bigfoot documentary. I also did National Geographic Channel, Sasquatch Planet, and a bunch of other shows. I've been very blessed on traveling the United States looking into cryptids. So I but I'm more of a boots on the ground field researcher. So even though I've done, TV, all that jazz, I'm in the woods doing the work. I'm all about the work. And up to today, I continue just to be in the woods and make sure, do the work for my clients, the people that are coming to me, the witnesses that are seeing these things, and tell them they're not crazy. Because, what we find in the woods, it's like you just said, there's some way this is all connected: paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot. And it's really funny because I got a story I can tell you that just happened to me last week that I haven't really talked about at all. I'm actually going to talk about it on my radio show tomorrow that we do on the
Oh, yeah.
NYBS radio show. So this will be, I'll give you the first dibs on it. And it's something that I never thought would happen being a Bigfooter, but I can't explain it. So I can only tell the facts. And I'm a very logical, factual person. So regardless of what other people believe, and I'm not here to change people's mind, I'm here to tell you blunt facts. And then you can run with it, because I don't care if you believe or not, because I'm going to tell you what happened. And that's how I am. I'm very blunt. I'm to the point.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us what happened to in your experience here.
All right, so we'll get right into it. So last week I went to one of my research areas, and up in the Adirondacks. The Adirondack Park is huge. It takes up, it's the biggest. It's actually the biggest national park in all of America, but it's technically not a national park because there's privately owned sections of it. So this is where it gets all weird and stuff. But anyway, went up to one of my research areas that I've been researching now for over 10 years, just to put a trail camera up. I normally don't do much research in the summer in certain areas because there's so many hikers. And because of COVID right now, when the state of New York, everything's really screwy. And now what's happened is all the people that aren't naturally in the woods are now in the woods. And, and this is a problem. Also, as a mountaineer and a person like that, safety is our number one factors at all points in time. And I preach wood safety all the time. And sure enough, so we went up to one of our areas and said, screw it, let's go on up and try to get a camera in my bush camp. Now, my bush camp is a couple miles back in the woods. So it's like we come off a trail, go up in, like I told you earlier, I'm a bushcrafter, I'm a survivalist. I'm able to make bush camps in the woods, and I know how to get there with, map and compasses, all those fun things, and then come back out. Where only people that would come across something like that would be probably a hunter in hunting season that may stumble upon it, but your everyday people, they don't even know where we are. So unfortunately, when we were going up into the woods, me and another person, there was campers in the area. I'm like, shit, now I have to go the long way around. All right. And we also had our dog with us and things like that. So we start going up and around the long way. Well, as we're coming back down around the backside of our camp to go in for the back way, through the middle of the woods, the person I was with, all of a sudden, she went deaf in her ear. Like her one ear went completely deaf out of nowhere. Now, what was weird is she did make a comment that the woods was very weird. Okay, and so sometimes when we go out in the woods, or even when I'm ghost hunting in houses and things like that, the environment just feels really weird. It really does. When you're in the woods and it's dead silent, like you'll hear crickets, you hear all the bird, you'll hear everything. And then all of a sudden, it's like legit, like it's death. It's completely silent. You can hear yourself breathe. All right. So it was one of those weird nights. And so she made a comment that, she goes, oh, well, I can't hear in my one ear. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll just note this. And I wasn't really thinking much about it, though. You know what I mean? I'm like, maybe blah, blah, blah. I kind of dismissed it, honestly. So I left them there because they were having a hard time trying to get down to where we were. And then I went down to my bush camp and got into it. Well, upon reaching bush camp, to set you up a little bit, for the past 2 months, we've been doing a lot of research in this area, and I believe that we're dealing with juveniles. The reason I believe we're dealing with a juvenile squatch is because this area that I've been researching for 10 years, I believe is a nursery. The reason I believe it's a nursery, we find full-grown tracks along with small tracks, all right, which would tell me that there's small squatches in this area, okay? So with that being said, I've been tracking I think as a juvenile male that's been in our bush camp now. This would be the third time because we found another 13-inch track right smack in the middle of our camp. Now, since the beginning in middle of May, I found one track that was about 50 yards outside of bush camp along a creek bed. And I always make sure that I'm in a water source area. And upon looking at it, we took pictures. It's up on our Facebook page and things like that. Come to find out that is a 13-inch track. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Came back a month later, sure enough, found another one right smack in the middle of bush camp. So it came right up into camp, knowing that we're there, knowing we're kind of, doing something. And then sure enough, now here we are another month later, we found another track of the same creature, same size. So I'm dealing with the same creature. So, I'm looking like, cool. All right, we have another track. Awesome. But once again, I don't want to sound too crazy, but I'm just like, well, it's another track, whatever. And at that point, I'm just kind of like, whatever, because we keep finding tracks. That's not my real reason even being down there. Like, tracks are cool, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But what this year in 2020, what I've been instilling is that I've been doing communication with squatches, a form of gifting, a form of alphabet. We are creating an alphabet to communicate with a potential squatch. And it's been working wonders this year. And I'm putting the data together. And in 2021, I'll have a whole system, hopefully in play, that we'll have the data collected of the trial and error to give us an answer of well, this is working. And I can tell you so far, the data I've collected from this project that I'm doing, it's working. It's working pretty well. I'm actually blown away by it. I didn't expect it to work at all. So we're down in there. Well, I'm down in there. So I grab a camera and put it up on a tree in the area. And once again, I do not put cameras up on trees to catch squatches. That's number one. I do not want to catch a picture of a squatch whatsoever. Don't. And I'm one of the few probably researchers, I'll be honest with you about that. The reason I say that, if you go on Facebook and you go on all these YouTube channels, the minute someone posts anything that's a squatch, ghost, UFO, you get ripped apart, right? And I'm not about that life. Listen, I'm not about that life. If I got a good picture of a squatch, guess what's going to happen? I'm keeping it for myself and for all the clients I work with. I work with a lot of private clients on private property here in New York. I'm very blessed to be able to do that. I will share that with the people that need to see it. And those are the people that need to see it because they're the ones that are coming to me for help. All right. But as far as, out in general public and stuff like that, listen, we all get scrutinized on a daily basis. You put a picture out there and it gets blasted. It could be a real thing and we blast it. So it's not even worth it at that point in time. I put trail cameras up to monitor the animal populations. All my degrees in college and science, it's all science, it's all animal behavior. Okay. So all my degrees are in animal behavior. I understand how animal behavior works. So I want to monitor the deer populations. Is there any bears walking through? What time are the deer there? What are the animals doing? What are they, if I'm putting out food and stuff like that, what are they eating? What are they, all those type of things. That way, I will understand that, listen, maybe we'll say Monday through Wednesday, the deer were here every day at 1 a.m., at 2 a.m., and they left at 4 a.m. But all of a sudden, Thursday to Sunday, I had nothing whatsoever. That now tells me that there's an apex predator of some sort in that area. There's something different in the environment, okay? So maybe a squatch came in, maybe a bear came in, maybe a mountain lion or a pack of coyotes are coming in that area to kick the deer out. But I need to know that information. Well, I put the trail camera up on the tree, the thing starts malfunctioning like crazy. Like it's snapping a million pictures, not working. And I'm like, oh, come on, man, really right now? It's bad enough I had to go the long way around to get here. Now my camera is not working. And it's never done that before. We use very expensive trail cameras. These things are hundreds of dollars. But it is what it is. So I'm finicking with it, playing with it. And sure enough, it's still doing the same thing. And at this point, I'm just like, fuck this. I'm getting angry now because I'm like, this is a waste of a trip, basically. I don't care about the track because, the track's cool, but that's not why I'm here. That track tells me that there was something here, yes, but it's not giving me any information really, other than something was here, but I don't know what it's doing. So I finally took all the batteries out of the camera now. And I'm like, I'm just going to take the batteries out to reset it. Hopefully it'll reset it after a couple minutes. Take all the batteries out of the camera. For 1 minute after I did that, the camera was still on, taking pictures with no batteries in the camera. Now, it's impossible. Now, once again, if it froze, and this is why I go through this is where my paranormal weirdness that's why I'm glad I'm a paranormal investigator in some ways. because logically I'm a tech guy. I'm a tech nerd. I love the technology. I love all that nerdy stuff. So I understand how all that stuff works. We build for my paranormal group. We build stuff for it. You know what I mean? For ghost hunting. So it's impossible for a piece of equipment with no batteries in it whatsoever to continue to take pictures for at least up to a minute. I'll give it a couple seconds. Sometimes it's powering down and you take batteries out and it still will be on for a split second, maybe 2-3 seconds, because there's still juice in the system, but not for a minute and not taking pictures. And I have a whole video of it taking pictures for 1 minute. What does that? I don't know. But this is the weirdness now. Put all the batteries back in it. Same thing. It's not cooperating. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done here. There's nothing else I could do. So what I did was left a communication glyph. All right. We use glyphs. Left one there. I'm like, you know what? I might as well do something while I'm here, because now my whole entire agenda is blown out the door. And left a glyph on the ground, and I walked away and walked back up. And we, met with the person I was with, grabbed the dog, and as we were walking up, hiked out. I get to my car now. Now, to set this up now, I went to get gas before. Now, these areas are far away. This is like a good hour and a half, 45-minute drive in the middle of Nowheresville. I stopped and got gas on the way there. Stopped at Dunkin' Donuts to load up on coffee. All right, these are the things that we do. Well, I get back to the car, hike back to the car, go to turn the car on, car's totally dead. Battery's dead. Everything's dead. And I'm like, are you kidding me now? Because once again, we're in areas that we have no cell phone service, no anything. The closest place to get cell phone service is 10 miles away down a dirt road. And if I had to hike that road, that's about, and as an experienced hiker, and I do run ultra marathons also, that's still that's a 3 to 4 hour one-way hike down a road with hiking boots and gear. So that would have been awful, and having a dog and having, people with me. So luckily those campers were there. They were, we tried to jump my car. Nothing. After he has a brand new car, I have a small car. I don't have a big truck or anything. So there should have been enough juice in that battery to jump it, to at least get me started, not be totally dead in the middle of summer on an 85-degree day. There's just no reason. I mean, if it was winter, okay. If it was extreme cold, okay, I get it. It's harder to crank. It doesn't, this is not how it works. Now, even to set it up even further for you, I was only in the woods for 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So it wasn't like I was out there for hours. We did what we had to do. Like I said, I was in and out. Once because I wanted to get in there, I couldn't do nothing. Once I was at my bush camp, we had to go the longer way around, but I didn't have much to do because there was nothing to do there. And even though the longer way around is kind of a shortcut, but we're only in the woods for a good 30 minutes. So 45 maybe tops, but not like, usually I'm out there for hours in the middle of the woods. So you tell me, what does this? I don't know. Now I can scramble my brain on and on and on, but this is one of those things. Now, when I talk about Bigfoot, I'm on the flesh and blood side of Bigfoot. I am. I mean, I don't come off of that because I talk to the Native Americans in New York. I go by what they say. They're the experts. There's no expert in Bigfootology. There really isn't. I mean, the Native Americans live with that. So if I go by what they say, they're flesh and blood creatures. They're a tribe of their own people. But now I can't ignore what just happened, because this is one of those weird things now that I'm in, and I'm in an area where, I really do believe that, Bigfoots are, I have enough evidence to back all that up. But in the same sense, what does this weirdness?
Well, that's what I was just about to ask you. They have all these accounts of encounters with Bigfoot, or people that are looking into the phenomenon, and there's all kinds of other strange things that occur around it. Things that, like you just said, or UFOs, or strange lights, or all these other things associated. And I was going to ask you, what are your overall thoughts on? Could this be an alien? Is it just some kind of hominid? Is it, what is this creature that all this other stuff seems to revolve around it as well,
Yeah. All right. So my personal theory is this. Now I'm just going to stay on the flesh and blood side for now, because I'm not in any camp. That's the difference between the New York Bigfoot Society. We don't stay in a camp. we don't know what this is. We don't know what the creature is. You know, like I say, I've done TV shows where I met, you know, Dr. Meldrum, all these scientists, all these people. I've been very blessed to do that. And, you know, because I've heard so many different stories from so many different people, scientists and all these kind of things, I just stay in the camp of it's something, there's something there. What I kind of personally do believe is that one of the reasons I think ufology and Bigfoot go together, and I've actually had an experience myself with this. We were up in Vermont, okay? Finding Bigfoot did a show in this one area in Vermont. Now, they looked at this picture that this guy named Frank put out of a Bigfoot with a baby at his apple tree. And everybody said it was an owl and blah, blah, blah. I can tell you it's not an owl. The reason I can tell you this is why. I was a part of the first team to ever do the investigation for that picture. I was lucky to be on that team. So even before that picture got out public, I was already at Frank's house on his property doing all this stuff with that picture. And I met him. I met his wife. They're great people. You know, they have nothing to gain from this. It was a lucky picture. Well, the reason I say this is when Finding Bigfoot did the whole investigation up there. My team did the investigation in the same spot because once again, it's all TV written, you know, the area that they investigated. And what we found was this. I was actually with two of my investigators on top of this mountain, and, you know, then there's big power lines. I'm talking the very big power lines that go all the way through the country, along the mountainside and things like that. Well, we happen to be shooting the shit talking, and we look up and we see this ball light, right? And it's kind of zigzagging slowly, as you can see it, because the power lines, it's just a straight open view, you know. And we're all looking at it, and we're just talking, and the first thing I'm saying, no, that's a satellite. And I'm going through all this stuff. I would never say it's a UFO. I just wouldn't. And they're like, well, that's really interesting, blah, blah, blah. And then we kind of, you know, watch it for a couple minutes, and then we just walk back up the mountain to base camp. Our base camp was right on top of this mountain. We had to take four-wheelers and all that fun stuff to get up to it. So we're packing up at the end of the night, but nothing happened. We had no Bigfoot activity that night. I didn't really expect it anyway. And sure enough, we're all sitting there once again having a good time before we left, packing up all of our cases, you know, slamming our last energy drinks of the night. And we happened to look up, and there was that ball of light was right above us, but it was closer to us. And all three of us are looking at it like, there's that ball of light. Like, what the fuck is this, right? And then out of nowhere, it went straight up in the air at like Mach million, basically, and left a vapor trail and disappeared. And you can see the vapor trail that it left as it went straight up. My opinion on this, the reason I say this is that's a Bigfoot area that's known for Bigfoots, and we witnessed a UFO that night. Now, I think that it would make sense logically that if Bigfoots do exist and they're an animal, blah, 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 they would be drawn to these magnetic type areas that UFOs would be drawn to for the same purposes. Kind of like when we do ghost hunting. In a lot of places that we do ufology and we do Bigfooting and cryptids, there's also paranormal ghost stories all over these areas. Take the Bridgewater Triangle over in Massachusetts. Perfect example. Hoppemock Swamp and those kind of areas. You know, that's not even that far. It's only a 3-hour drive for me. But you have Bigfoots, you have cryptids, you have UFOs, all in these areas. We find that the Bigfoots and cryptids, dogmen, things like that are in the same areas as UFOs. And I think it's because it's not so much that they're connected and linked per se, as far as Bigfoots are getting abducted by aliens or vice versa. They're piling the ships and you see them come down. I think that there's something natural in the environment, like ley lines or things like that, that in those areas that draw this phenomena to happen. Just like I told you my story about how, you know, it was more of a paranormal experience. You're like, what keeps a trail camera on with no? In the meantime, while that's on, if I want to go into my paranormal brain, when that was on, was it somehow draining my battery from my car to keep that trail camera on? Like through some kind of time and space? Because come on, let's be real. I don't have an answer for that. But you tell me how my car battery is completely dead, right? But this trail camera is still snapping pictures with no battery for a minute, you know, and it's all hypothetical, and I can rattle my paranormal brain all day long on this. But that's what I personally believe, is that, you know, these areas, there's some kind of energy shift in, like, I don't want to say maybe a vortex, maybe a portal type area, things like that, that we don't see in the woods. And these UFOs, these, you know, beings, cryptids, because, you know, we'll call them, they're weird, and then all this, ghost stuff. It all goes together that in that sense. This is what I believe, and that's logically, and that's just me trying to think logically, without saying that I'm watching Bigfoots come out of UFOs, hanging out with a dog man and riding Nessie, hanging out with unicorns and stuff. I mean, that's honestly, that's where it goes at that point. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just can't be, I'm not that person. So that's what I believe. And it would make logical sense because we already know that certain, in geology, if we look in geology, certain stones, they all hold energy. All right. So we have the woods is a perfect place for energy. So it would make sense why we would see these type of things.
What are your thoughts on the accounts that these things can just disappear or seem to disappear in thin air? They'll be there 1 second and they'll take 2 steps and then seemingly just be gone. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's once again the weird thing because I personally have experienced that. I've had my own sighting, so I've had my.
I was going to ask you about a sighting too, so maybe I can hear about that.
I could put it together. I'll put them both together. So after doing one of the TV shows I was on, I went back just to kind of fool around. Okay, I was just like, whatever. I had some time off. I had to take some, almost a week off of work to do this TV show, and then the crew was done. Blah blah blah. So I actually went back, and it was at nighttime. And I'll tell you, I saw one, but I didn't see one. This is why I say both. I was coming down the trail. It's actually right in the same research area that I'm in now. Okay, so same area. And sure enough, as I was coming down, I have a night vision binocular. Okay, so what it is, this is a night vision scope. And I'm slowly coming down the trail, and I have my night vision scope on. And sure enough, as I look up, there was something something tall, about 7 feet tall, standing behind a tree, staring at me. Now I can see half of it. The classic Bigfoot staring behind the tree. And I was the first one to say, are you fucking kidding me? This classic story. Here we go. Like, I can't just see one dead on. It has to be the classic, well, I saw one behind a tree or it's up in a tree. Like, here I am experiencing the same thing now. So, and I was sitting there staring at it. We're, about, I'll say 40 to 50 yards away from each other. And it didn't move. And I'm trying to rattle my brain, like, this isn't what I'm seeing. This isn't what I'm seeing, blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden I saw a blink. Now that's what sold me. When its eye blinked and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh shit, this is real. Now I know what I'm seeing. I'm seeing something right now. It blinked at me, all right? Then all of a sudden it slowly turned and walked to its left through the woods, all right? And as I'm trying to watch it, it's going down a hill. It was an embankment, so you can see it, this black shadow thing going down the hill. The reason I say I didn't have that encounter, because I'm a very logical being. I have to see it like I'm looking at you right now. So if I don't see it dead on, can tell you facial features, can tell you everything about the creature, can tell you details, then I didn't see it. But I did have my encounter because once again, it's one of those split 22s because I know what I saw. Just like I told you that story about the paranormal weirdness I had in the woods, I normally would never talk about something like that on a Bigfoot anything. I would never even bring that up. But in this, because once again, you get classified as, oh, you think that they're ghosts and all this crap. No, I don't. I'm telling you what the facts are. If you can't deal with what the facts I'm telling you, then that's on you because I don't care. These are the facts. So that was my exciting encounter. Now, what was the other question I was going into with that?
Talking about how they seem to just kind of disappear. And people's accounts of, phasing out of this reality.
Yeah, and I've had that happen too, where tracks seem to disappear. The one thing that I kind of stick on with that and is infrasound. Okay, we hear that all the largest animals and primates and things like that give off infrasound. The lions, when they roar, give off infrasound. They can, the other lions can hear them for miles. The elephants slam the ground. They can feel that vibration for miles, and whales do it also. So all the largest animals on the planet give off infrasound. So if Sasquatch does exist, they would be the largest primate of some sort. Okay, and I believe that they're more human than they are anything. I stay on the human side. I think they are more human. Not that they're smarter than us. They're just masters of their environment in the woods. That's it. That's where we're not wood savvy people like we used to be. So with that being said, I think because people are sometimes when they have a Sasquatch encounter, I've had it too, you get into the flight and fright syndrome. All right. So you'll be out there in the woods doing your thing, whatever you're doing. And all of a sudden you get like goosebumps all up in you. Your stomach drops. You get a headache. Your body starts feeling like it's in flight or fright. Like you're feeling you're being affected in a really negative way. So it would make sense to me that it's possible that a Sasquatch, being possibly the largest human primate, whatever you want to, even if it's extraterrestrial, whatever you want to put it, would be able to cause an infrasound behavior, which is a frequency, which is easy to do in itself when you think about it, because we give off frequency all the time, to then affect you, to kind of put your defenses down, to put you in like, oh, like it's a warning signal, all right? If that is possible, and that's what they do, it would then kind of go along the lines of how do they disappear? Because if they're able to give off a frequency almost like a dog whistle, okay, to affect our brain enough to disorient us just enough, because once again, frequencies disorient humans. We already know that. High frequencies, they bug with us. They make your eyes start twitching and all this stuff. This is all proven by science. If they're able to do those kind of things with just a vocal or some kind of frequency they give off, it would make sense that why we might think they just disappear. And it's not that they actually disappear, it's that we're disoriented. So we're no longer like monitoring the environment on like we were before that encounter happened. And that would logically make sense to me. But what doesn't make sense, once again, there's so much stuff I can't explain, is that how do tracks magically disappear? All right. In the woods, I can say it's easy for tracks to disappear. It's easy. I mean, we don't always lay a track every single time we walk. We don't. But when you have the snow tracks, you're looking at snow and you're looking at those track lines in the snow, and then they just magically disappear. That leaves me with one of two things. The tracks were fake to begin with. Okay, so someone hoaxed it, made a track line to magically disappear, and now they put it on YouTube, and now it's gold to everybody else. All right, no, that's not how it works. Or now we're dealing with something that's an interdimensional type being when you start talking about that stuff, and you get into those realms of Bigfoot, and then you get into the paranormal. I call it the paranormal Bigfoot. So that's kind of what I believe it's based on frequency and just like a dog whistle. It messes with their mind, and then they kind of disappear because we're just a little bit disoriented.
That's very interesting. Now, speaking of tracks, you were talking in your first story that you were kind of following tracks of what you thought was a juvenile. How big were these tracks? And tell us a little bit about some of the tracks that you've encountered and what makes you think they're actually Squatch tracks.
All right, yeah. So I've found plenty of Squatch tracks throughout the years I've been doing this. All different ones, honestly. I found baby ones. And I found, the ones that we're talking about now, they're only 13 inches. I found 16-inch tracks. Now, why do I think that they're Sasquatch tracks? First off, a lot of times I'll say possibly. You always hear me say possibly because I don't have facts. Don't have facts. Everything I'm talking about right now, just so everybody knows, is hypothetical. But I'll state the facts for you from what I'm seeing. The reason I think they're possible Squatch tracks is this. When you look at the track itself, it's a very wide track. First off, okay, they're very deep. They're very deep down in either the mud or the pine needle debris that's on the forest floor. Okay, there's no mid-carpal break in that. These tracks are flat, so they're flat and they're wide. Now, the reason I think it's a juvenile, I'm only getting one single track. It's funny because I was talking to two other field researchers that I just hired on my team this year. They're from different teams also. And we were just talking about this today, that with Sasquatch tracks in general, what I personally find is that when you get the single tracks all over the place that are kind of coming in and checking you out, the reason I believe that's a juvenile male, because it would make sense that this juvenile may be trying to do a dominance behavior. But as I said, all my sciences are in animal behavior. So if I'm being logical right now, in any type of animal pack family, the coyotes, the lions, the whales, the orcas, things like that, someone has to be the leader. The apes, the chimps. You have to have a leader of the pack or the clan or whatever you want to call them. So if we have squatches reproducing, okay, and now you have little squatches with the families, unless you have all females, because that's a whole different dynamic, I would say, in itself. But if you have a male squatch in that family, sooner or later, just like when you have a dog that's a puppy, they come into their own by 8 months to a year. They start coming into their own, testing the waters, okay, for dominance. it would make logical sense that a juvenile male coming into its own would start testing the waters for dominance against the alpha male for the clan or the pack. So this is why I think when we find singular tracks in areas that seems like they're checking things out, that would be more of a male type behavior. Females would not have any reason to come and start checking out areas because that's not what they're about. They take care of the young in the animal. We're talking about the animal world. They feed, okay, so they gather food, and they take care of the young, and that's what they do, and they reproduce. That's what they kind of do, all right? Males, on the other hand, because it's a dominance behavior and something has changed in the environment, are now coming in to check out what's going on, all right? When you hear Bigfoot reports, a lot of times you hear that, you know, we saw a female Bigfoot, blah, 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 and they're very docile. They're kind of just walking, not paying attention to absolutely anybody, and they go do their thing. The juveniles and the males, juveniles and behavior in general, it's a lot more erratic. They'll scream at you in the woods. They'll start shaking trees. They'll throw rocks at you. I've had all that happen. You tell me what does that about 5-6 miles in the forest. You just tell me. And I'll be like, listen, what shakes trees? What throws huge rocks at you and starts screaming at you? Like, no, it doesn't. Like, I'm going to be honest. I've been spooked out of the woods by owls. Barred owls in mating season sound like banshees, screaming, dying women in the middle of the woods at 1 o'clock in the morning when you're not near anybody. I don't care how awesome you are in the woods. You're gonna that puts the fear of God in you real quick, especially when you're in a mindset. And I've been scared out of the woods by an owl. I'm not ashamed of it. You know what I mean? And then I got to the freaking car and I'm like, wow, that was an owl. Are you fucking kidding me right now? But once again, it depends on your mindset. All right. So, but what does these type of things? So here we go with a 13-inch track sitting in camp in multiple areas, all around camp. Whatever this is, you can see that it's checking out what we're doing. There's a strategic way it's working, okay? And everywhere that these tracks are found is an eye shot from, you can see our camp, all right? I made a bush camp, so I have a bush shelter. I have all this stuff that's like a bushcrafter. If they came along, they're like, oh, cool, this is a survival guy. You know what I mean? But when I leave the sites, I break it all down like no one's even there. So you won't even know that I'm there if I plan on that. I leave the stuff up is for certain periods of time because I want to get interest, all right? Making something different in the woods is going to draw all the interest of the animals, all right? And that's why I do it. And then I break it all down like I was never there a couple weeks later. So these are the kind of tracks that I'm finding. Now, on my page, actually, on one of my trailers that I just made, you can see that we have a baby track, and that track is only 4 to 5 inches long. That's it. But you tell me that track was found 7.5 miles bushwhacking in the forest on a swamp bed, all right, in the middle of Nowheresville. And to get to this swamp, it was a pain in the ass, let me tell you. And I happened to just come across it. It's not happening. It's not. There's no little kid out in the woods that far in the woods. It's not happening. It's just not. And in that same area, I had a huge rock thrown in my direction from the other side of the swamp, which splashed in the water. And like, you tell me what that is. If you have a great explanation for that, then I'm cool with that. And I'll be like, you know what? Whatever. I don't know. I'm cool. I can say I'm one of probably the few people that say I don't know all the time, and I'm okay with it because we don't know. You know, we don't know, and it's okay. You don't have to have an answer for everything, you know, but what we do have are hypotheses and theories, and working together as a community, working these theories and those that's how we get answers. So, but that's kind of, you know, if that explains the tracks a little bit, yeah, I mean, and that's why, you know, a 13-inch track to me is a male juvenile, just because of the behavior. And I would say that's a dominance behavior it's doing. Okay, tracks tell a story. All tracks tell a story. And because of the way they're positioned around camp, whatever this is interested in what we're doing.
Now, you mentioned that they would, you know, throw rocks at you or yell at you. I'm wondering if you've ever heard or encountered any accounts of them actually attacking someone. If you've heard any stories about that.
Now, you know, I do talk about how. Let me just put this disclaimer out for everybody. You know, Bigfooting is serious research. It really is. It's not like going in a house ghost hunting. It's not. Ghost hunting is easy. You know, sitting outside looking for UFOs, doing skywatch, easy. Okay? Bigfooting, you need to know about the woods. right? Let's just start there. My team, I make them carry all. I have a gear list. Okay, I'm very anal. We have a gear list for their rucks that they carry for survival and safety equipment. Okay, that's the first thing. All right. Second thing, if you're gonna go bigfooting in the woods, always go with someone you trust that knows the woods, because you're in the backcountry. Bigfooting. The problem is that a lot of people I see Bigfoot, they stay on the nature trail. So they're like, oh, we're on a nature trail, we're going down, blah blah blah. That's not what we do when we Bigfoot. Bigfooting, we go into the bush, we go way off trail, and let me tell you, I lived in Maine for a hot second for a couple of years. I own 275 acres on a mountain in a log cabin home. I was in the back, I had a bush camp. I knew that woods like the back of my hand, but guess what happened one day? I was supposed to go out for breakfast with my ex-girlfriend and her mom. I went in the back to fool around in the woods like I always did, and then sure enough, I got lost in the woods for 12 hours. 12 hours in Maine, and I'm a trained person, and I took one wrong turn and all the woods looks the same. So I just always put that disclaimer out that you got to be careful, because you can get lost, and once you get lost, you're screwed unless you have the right stuff. But going on into this stuff with Bigfoot, I just lost my train of thought. What was your question real quick?
If you've ever heard any accounts of them actually
attacking,
yes.
Attacking, yes, sorry. I got on a tangent. So with the attacking thing, it goes hand in hand, because I do say there's 1% chance I may never come back out of the woods. 1%. You never know what you're going to come across in the woods. I'm personally more scared of humans that you come across in the woods. I'm not going to lie about that. I've come across humans in areas that they shouldn't be, all right? And you're like, oh shit, now what do we do here, okay? There's humans in this area. This is not good. But I personally haven't got any reports from New York as of right now of people being attacked by Bigfoots. But if you do look at like Missing 401 with David Pilates and things like that, there are stories coming out of the Adirondacks that people randomly go missing. All right, that they're there with a group of people, and then for whatever reason, boom, they're gone. They disappear. Like they're nowhere to be found. Could this be Bigfoot? Maybe. Could it be a paranormal type portal thing? Maybe. We don't know because they disappear. But there is, I mean, I always say, and you hear so many Bigfooters be like, oh, they're so nice, they're cuddly, they'll never hurt you, blah, blah, blah. Listen, an animal is an animal is an animal. And, you know, take us humans. We don't wake up in a good mood every damn day. Some days I don't want to be bothered. So you're telling me that a 7 to 10 foot creature that owns the woods, all right, is going to be like, oh, hey, how you doing? We're just going to leave you alone. No, it's not going to happen that way. It's not. You never know what's going to happen in the woods. That's like if you see a coyote and it's coming up next to you and it starts coming near you. Oh, hi, this is really cute. It's a coyote. And then it tries to tear your face off. No, that's not how it works. So I always err on the side of safety. When you do this work, always make sure to treat it as a serious subject that you may be attacked. Right? I'm not saying shoot them. I'm very non-kill proponent. I don't carry shotguns and guns in the woods. You don't need any of that stuff. But what I do say is just be serious in the fact of knowing that you could come across something, okay, maybe a mountain lion, who even knows, that you would put you in a position of harm that you may not come back out of the woods in one piece. And a Sasquatch, let me just tell you, like, you don't know. So people are so naive to think that they're big cuddly Ewoks like Chewbacca and stuff like that. It's not that way. If we look at the real life, this is real life. This isn't land of make-believe. If we're looking at real life, you come across a territory area, you come across maybe a mother and the young is nearby, you may not be coming back out. You may have an issue where you get attacked. They just had a story in southern New York, I don't know if you heard about it, where a woman said that she got attacked by a Bigfoot. I laughed about it. That's the first thing I did was laugh, because I'm thinking, if you got attacked by a Bigfoot, you ain't coming, you're not even telling your story. You're not telling your story. You're not. So, you know, it's clickbait pretty much. Click, click, oh, read the story, it's clickbait. But you do hear about the attacks. I mean, there's plenty of stories from, you know, Sasquatches, you know, a Squatch got killed, and then the group of Squatches tried to kill the people in the cabin. You hear these stories. I mean, so there has to be something to that, which it would make sense, you know, so.
Now, what kind of physical evidence to you is the most compelling besides the tracks that have been found?
Honestly, This is where I go by. And when I call evidence, for me is a lot different. You can think about this, okay? We have the tracks or whatever. We have tree knocks. People say they take sticks and knock trees. I don't believe that. What I personally think they do is take rocks and throw them against trees. Sasquatch, Bigfooters get rocks thrown at them. People get rocks thrown at them. You pick up a stick in the woods and smack a tree, it's going to break in half because it's all rotten. It's all deadwood. It's all deadwood. And then you got to find the perfect tree to make that hollow sound. I think they throw rocks at trees because we've done it and we got great results from it. But it's gonna. I hate to say this, it's gonna take a body. Legit, it's gonna take a body. That we all know that. Dead or alive, and because we live in modern day America, it's gonna take a body. Okay. But as far as the evidence, all I personally need for evidence is these people that retire from the FBI, from the law enforcement, from forest rangers, from your everyday people that have then come forward and tell you, listen, these things are real. They exist. I know they exist. And they tell you about their stories. Is that physical evidence? No, it's not. It's a story. But this is the physical evidence to me. Why would these people even come out with a crazy story like that? Why? They have nothing to gain. When you have nothing to gain from a story, then that is the evidence, in my opinion. Just like we talk about ufology, right? These pilots that fly all these planes, if they say they saw a UFO, what happens? They lose their job and they get a desk job. They say hush hush, right? So, but they come out and tell these UFO stories. Oh, well, we had this UFO encounter. We had this, we had that. It's to the point now where, look at the Navy's releasing all this stuff and the Pentagon's releasing this stuff because they can't hide it anymore. You can no longer hide it. It's to the point where now they're saying UFOs do exist. There's crafts from out of this world, quote unquote, which we've all known forever anyway, but they can't hide it anymore. So to me, is that evidence? Is it evidence that these pilots and these scientists are working on craft, and these ex-forest rangers are monitoring Bigfoot populations, and they say they are? And you have your everyday police officer that had an encounter of a Bigfoot crossing a road, and it's on dash cam or something, and then the footage goes missing. And then, these people come out and talk about UFOs and they magically disappear off the face of the planet and you never hear from them again. So that to me is where the evidence lies, and that's the main evidence. But it's so easy to discredit a human by, once again saying you're lying, you're making up stories, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of waters it down because then it's he said, she said stuff. But that's the main evidence other than finding a body, because I can show you tracks all day. But the problem is it's a picture of a track. Until I tell you a story to go with the track, that track doesn't mean anything. Same thing. If I was to find a hair sample, right? That hair sample doesn't mean anything until I tell you, well, I found this hair sample in this location on this tree or this thing, and this is what was happening, and blah, blah, blah. There has to be a lot of collaborating evidence to go with that, and a lot of story to go with that. So if we have to tell a story about a track, right? And just because there's a picture, people are like, oh, well, there's a picture. Then what's the difference if I have an ex-FBI, ex-military, ex-law enforcement, ex-forest ranger coming that was, they're on record to say they can't say anything when they have a job. But now they're coming out. You tell me what's the difference? Honestly, what's the difference?
Right. No, I happen to agree with you 100% that the evidence does come from these testimonials and these people that have experienced it, very credible people. Now, you said you were attempting some sort of communication experiment. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I've been releasing little bits and pieces. So what we've been doing in 2020 is, we went back to our main research area. Okay, we have 4 different research areas in the state of New York. And when I say that, they're throughout. We have one in the northern New York, one in western New York out near Buffalo, one in southern New York out toward when you start getting to, New York City type area, above New York City though. And then just so people know, and then one in central New York, so in the Finger Lakes area. So we follow 4 separate families, if you want to say, of squatches and those kind of things. So what I've been doing in 2020 is kind of, instead of looking for squatches, I've been now thinking, listen, let's try to communicate with Squatches, because if we can learn to communicate, and I'm not talking gifting and those kind of things, I'm talking make an alphabet that they may understand in some form, okay? And let's just go by it and see what happens. What we started doing this year, after talking to a gentleman that had Bigfoots on his property for a very long time, and he was kind of giving us some ideas of what he used to do, excuse me, we started using the Chinese alphabet. And why everybody's like, oh, Gary, why would you use a Chinese alphabet? That makes no sense. It does make sense. And this is why it didn't make sense to me at first. And I'm like, this is BS. But then when I actually logically stopped to think about it, it does make sense. If we go by the theory that all these creatures and Native Americans and things like that crossed the land bridge way back when, from Asia all the way to America, which would make sense because everything migrated. Okay, we found dinosaurs, we found all this stuff that migrated over that land bridge way back when. They would have an Asian type background throughout time. So that would make sense because they would be from that area. Okay. So if we go by that theory, and that's kind of what we're going by, and it seems to be working, which is really strange, we then will we use the alphabet. Well, then they'd be like, well, Gary, how would they even know that, though? Because now this is 2020. Just like anything, throughout time, they're taught things throughout time. It's a trickle down. I believe that Squatches are a flesh and blood form of human. Okay, it's not that they can disappear in the woods. It's not that they have magical powers, even though all this weird stuff has happened, and I'm not gonna lie, it has me scratching my head. So maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and guess what? I'm okay if I'm wrong. I don't care. But in the same sense, if I go by that, they're just masters of the woods. They're masters of their environment. They can hide and we won't see them because we're all technology now. Even though I do mountaineering and climb mountains and ice climb and do all this crazy stuff that you see on National Geographic, I'm still not a master of the woods. You know what I mean? I can stay in the woods and survive, but I can't like sneak around like they can, and I can't do all that. That is their backyard. That's their home. Okay. So with that being said, you have all this stuff that goes on, like, you know, I'm trying to you have all we put the alphabet together. All right. So if we use the Chinese alphabet, we start using symbols in that alphabet. So what we started doing is using different glyphs that match very simple language, and we put them out as offerings. All right. Now, the whole purpose of this experiment is to get them to change the glyph. One thing that did happen this year, and we've had multiple things, but I'm only going to talk about one because I'm still collecting data, and as a ghost hunter, I'm very number-oriented guy, so I'm all about the numbers. The numbers don't show, doesn't mean anything to me. One thing that did happen that was super interesting, we built a teepee structure. Okay, everybody talks about tree structures in Bigfoot. I kind of stay out of tree structures in Bigfoot because the woods cause natural things all the time. I see it all the time. Mother Nature is amazing. Also, who else is amazing? Bushwhackers and bushcrafters that do the same type of structures in the woods as guides, and I see it all the time. Once again, and I'm like, well, a human made this. It's you can tell the difference. Now, we built a teepee structure around this tree. There were 7 poles. When I say poles, 7 sticks. I call them poles. We did this whole thing, left the woods. Came back a week later. One of the poles was down on the ground, laying across the other 2 poles that were up against the tree. Yeah, I was like, all right, well, a deer knocked it over, a porcupine. Went through, I didn't really think much of it at first. So I looked at it, took a couple pictures, went up on, and then I kind of scouted my whole area. I call it the Squatch Triangle, my area. Once again, I have a triangle area, just like most areas, and I triangulated it all. So I got a 4-mile triangle in the woods, all right? That's the great thing about learning navigation. You learn navigation, you will not get lost with a map and compass. You know exactly where to go. So I come back to camp after checking all my other areas, no activity at my other areas. And I'm sitting there staring and pondering at this, thing now, at the stick being down. One thing I noticed, though, is there was a dig mark in the ground where the stick got pushed into the ground. So here's a stick that got pushed down and pulled straight across. The order for that to happen, something would have to physically grab the stick, pull it away from the tree, dig it into the ground, and then go across in a swiping motion. If a deer a raccoon, a fox, a skunk, I can go through all the freaking animals, did that, it wouldn't look like that. They would have knocked all the sticks over on that side of the tree, first off. There wouldn't be a dig mark like that where it got pulled away from the tree. When we measured it, the stick got pulled 25 inches away from the tree. 25 inches. Listen, a deer or something is not knocking that thing away 25 inches. We tried to debunk it a million times. And what happened is every time we hit it, the next stick fell next to it. The other stick kept falling. I mean, once again, it's like dominoes. But this was physically manipulated, pulled away from the tree, scraped across the ground from left to right now. So that's the other interesting part. It wasn't right to left, it was left to right. And then laid right in front of two other sticks. When we look into the Chinese alphabet, what that means now, when you have an A with a cross, it's basically a V with a cross. It looks like an A, but it's not a full A. What that stands for is big man. That's interesting. Why is that interesting to me? Right next to this tree that I didn't tell you, I had the glyph that said man. So I made a glyph that said man, letting them know that there's a man in the area. There's people in the area, okay? And there's also females on my team too. So there's not just men. But that was the glyph that I left for them. Then a week later, I get that stating that if that is true and if that is what happened, which I wasn't there to watch it, but here's the other clincher to it. There was another 13-inch track found not even 20 feet from that spot. That track was not there when I was there the week before. So here we go with, all right, so if that is the communication, that would tell me that this, whatever it was, possible Squatch, understands that part of the alphabet. That equals big man. It communicated to me saying that it's a big man. And I'm just left with, I don't know, but I'm just giving you the facts of what happened. So then to find a track not even 20 feet away from where that happened, 25 inches away from the tree, pulled away. I mean, listen, I logically try to say this is BS all the time. I'm the first one to tell you I don't want to find stuff because then I have to think about it more. And it's easier not to find stuff than to find stuff because then I rattle my brain all day long being like, this doesn't make logical sense. But that was one form of communication that we did have happen. So you can take it for what it's worth, but facts are facts.
That is very, very interesting. Yeah, I'd love to hear some updates, once you have a little bit more from your research about what's going down with that. That's very interesting. Yeah, I could talk the whole show about Bigfoot, but I want to move on to some other cryptids. Yeah. What are your thoughts on dogmen and encounters with dog-like creatures or werewolves? I mean, are these mystical creatures or just misrepresentations of like dog or, wild animals with mange or something, Yeah,
and working in the vet field, I know what demodectic mange and all that stuff is, like the chupacabra. They say once again it's a mange type creature. It's a dog with mange or a wild dog with mange. Even though I do possibly think the chupacabra could exist. Once again, it could be. I don't discredit it, but I also know what demodectic mange and different mange looks like in animals because I used to treat it. So it does look. And even other animals in the woods that you see like that. Dogmen, I think a lot of them, I think dogmen get misrepresented with Bigfoot a lot because they look very similar, okay? There would be different species of Bigfoot, just like there's different species of dogs, just like different species of human, all right? So I think some, and I'm saying some, dogmen encounters are actually Bigfoot encounters. Now, the thing with Dogman and actually we've been talking about studying Dogman for the past couple months now. This has always been a conversation that we go back and forth on a million times because we do have Dogman encounters in New York. The problem when you hear about Dogman, and maybe you can answer this for me, I'll put this back on you as a radio host, is that have you ever heard of a Dogman encounter that someone wasn't trying to get killed or dead or getting attacked? All Dogman encounters that you hear are violent.
Yeah, yes, most of them are terrifying or violent or feel threatened in some way, yes.
Okay, and that's what you hear too. And this is what we were talking about. We actually talked to Ken Girard about it. He's a good friend of ours, and he's a cryptozoologist and he writes a bunch of books and stuff. And I was talking to him being like, yo, Ken, like you never hear of a Dogman story that someone's not almost dead. They're being attacked and stuff. So this is always my question with dogmen, is that hypothetically, okay, if people are having dogman encounters and these creatures are trying to kill them, how are they still alive? I mean, I'm just being logical, because the encounter stories that they tell are so terrifying that I'm like, it sounds like you shouldn't even be living right now. Like, if this thing wanted to rip you up and eat you, you're done, right? I mean, that's just logical to me. Just like if I saw a mountain lion in the woods and it came behind me and it jumped on me and pounced and snapped my neck, I'm not doing anything about it. What am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? So those are always my question. Now with Dogman, though, also the werewolf type situations. I mean, there's so many stories of dogmen, though, that there has to be something to the mystery. So do I believe in dogman? I believe in dogman like I believe probably in Bigfoot. It's possible, okay? And I leave it at that. Just because I'm a Bigfoot researcher and you hear me talk about Bigfoot, it doesn't mean I fully believe in Bigfoot. I feel like if I fully believed in Bigfoot, I wouldn't do the research anymore, because I would disbelieve so much that I'm like, well, why am I even here? Because I don't want to know anything. So, but the problem with Dogman I have is like these encounters are so terrifying. Now, maybe dogmen are more of a paranormal type creature, because the reason I say that is when you also hear about dogmen, they seem to glow sometimes. They have like a greenish glow. They talk about mind speak with them, and they have psychic encounters with dogmen, and they can hear them talking to them through telepathy. You hear that in Bigfoot too, here and there, but more in dogman you hear that. So I could see that maybe a dogman may be more of a paranormal type creature. I actually just heard a story too where this guy said he saw from his hunting blind a dogman and Bigfoot hanging out together. I mean, that's two of the biggest.
It's a party right there.
For real, right? That's what I said. I go, oh, were they drinking Miller Lite or something? Like, what are they doing? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to discredit people for that. It's just hard for me to kind of visualize that as a person who's been doing this for 25 years and is in the woods doing this constantly, talking to hundreds of people, and I just never heard that type of encounter before. But maybe that was the holy grail of encounters. So I mean, maybe that really did happen. I don't know. It just sounds kind of crazy to me though. But yeah, so I think it's more of if I'm going to go with Dogman as a paranormal thing, I actually do Jersey Devil research. That's another one of my big things I started doing. I'm really into the Jersey Devil. I'm really into the Pine Barrens. I'm really into Sasquatch in the Pine Barrens. That Jersey Devil story is there's so much folklore.
For those who aren't familiar with the Jersey Devil, kind of bring us up to speed on that, because I'm really not that familiar myself with it.
Yeah, the Jersey Devil is such an interesting creature, and I'm actually going to talk about it on one of my radio shows coming up. Is that it's this creature, right? That the way the story goes is that this woman gave birth, like I think it was her 13th or 14th child, and she said I hope it's I want you to be a devil to get out of me, and like saying all this stuff, right? And then she gave birth, and the Jersey Devil was born, and it busted out through the roof and blah blah blah. I don't really think that's that's the myth of the story, and I'll get more into the details of that another time. But what it is it's a creature that has wings like a bat, has like a horse type head, and has like a goat like type body with hooves, and it flies and blah blah blah. Now, the reason this is so interesting to me, like it's so extreme, that's why it's interesting to me. This folklore story, it's beyond anything that Bigfoot, I can actually put my mind around and be like, you know what, it is possible that there is still a clan of humans that, when people say you can't find a Bigfoot, that's bullshit, because look at how many sightings there are. People are seeing Bigfoots all the time. So whenever I hear that story, I just shake my head like, have you not seen the tens of thousands of reports of people that see these things? Like there's sightings all the time. The Jersey Devil is kind of almost like Mothman in a weird way, that these encounters are very few in between, but when they have them, they're terrifying. And people have had them have it land on their roof, and they have photos of hoof prints on their roof that just magically disappear. What causes that? I don't know. Did they fake it? Anything's possible. But these stories come from, once again, like you said earlier, credible people. So we have credible people that are witnessing screams like a banshee in the woods that sound like the devil. New Jersey, even that New Jersey has its own devil. They classified it. The New Jersey Devils is a devil in New Jersey. It's classified. So like that. So that's what makes it so interesting to the story. It's one of the extreme cryptids. You know, Dogman, I'm kind of like a werewolf. I can watch Teen Wolf as a kid with Michael J. Fox. It's that's what it is to me, you know. But when you get into like Mothman, you get into Jersey Devil, things like that are so extreme. Listen, that's interesting, and I really believe that there must be something to the story. Now, what I personally believe, it may be some kind of mutated animal. Is it an animal that's gone through some kind of mutation somehow? Because if you look now, when we get into do you know much about the Pine Barrens at all?
Not very much, no.
Okay, the Pine Barrens are a freaky place. You have a lot of haunted areas in there. So once again, how we were talking about Bigfoot, ghosts, UFO sightings all over the place. You have haunted places all over the place in there. You have Bigfoot sightings. You have all this crazy stuff that goes on in the Pine Barrens. There's tons of cranberry bogs. The biggest portion that we used to get of cranberries used to be from the Pine Barrens. There's World War II bunkers back there for anti-aircraft guns from when World War II happened and we thought we were going to be attacked. There's military installations back in this area. You have all this weirdness in one area now. It is possible that an animal, maybe done by the government, like you heard the Montauk creature and all these weird experiments and things like that. Depends on what you believe. You know, people say that the Montauk creature was only like, they said it was a normal animal that washed up, blah, 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 but who knows? If you have a possible genetic mutation of some creature that went bad, it wouldn't surprise me that maybe not as extreme as these people are saying it is, obviously, but there is a creature of some sort, almost like the chupacabra now. It's almost the same way. It could be a genetic mutation of something that looks so different that these people are seeing it, and they witnessed it. Because these people that witnessed the Jersey Devil, they were terrified. And once again, why would they lie? You're talking about you're seeing a creature that's like doesn't even, you can't even wrap your mind around it logically, and they're telling their story in fear. They have nothing to gain from it. So that's why I think it's so interesting with that story, because it's like it's such an extreme creature, unlike Dogman, unlike Champ up in Lake Champlain and Nessie, and you know, those are such mainstream animals. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, you believe what you believe, but when you get into the Jersey Devil, it's like, all right, wait a minute. The Pine Barrens are screwed up as it is. It's possible. Anything's possible. And that's kind of where I leave it at that. But it's such an interesting, yeah, look into it. Make sure you're reading the stories. There's some cool documentaries on Amazon Prime about it. I mean, it's just look into it, because just the story, that's what intrigues me so much with that story. It's an amazing story. It's not boring. Yeah, it's not boring.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, definitely look into that.
Now, to close out tonight, I want to talk a little paranormal and hauntings. You do, of course, paranormal investigations. Now, I want to know, in your experience, or, you know, I guess, what's your thoughts on when it comes to hauntings? Most of the time, do you think that this is actual conscious spirits that are still kind of inhabiting the house, or is it like a trapped memory that's in the house, or something along those lines, or some kind of portal or something? What do you think is going on in the majority of these?
You muted me. There you are.
Oh, right, sorry. So, yeah, the majority of hauntings you've investigated.
All right. So all right, here we go with this. I'm blunt and to the point. So I like to say I'm Pandora's locked box of information. And this is why. This is a proven statistic from my paranormal team. My paranormal team, I've been doing this for, say, 24 years worth. Of my paranormal team has been around for 11, okay, with this team. The data and the numbers are the data and numbers. 99% of the private client cases that we do, which we're talking over 7,000, okay, that's a lot of houses, is the people in the house cause paranormal activity to happen. It's PK activity, all right? Poltergeist type activity. Now, this is what we find with that, okay? In private client houses, there is the 1% in private client houses that there is normal activity in the house of a possible spirit that's still there, okay? Something going on in the house.
Maybe the land is haunted itself, and I hate that word haunted, but we'll say active, and things like that. So we do find that. It takes a person, though, to make paranormal activity happen, in my opinion. That's why these people are getting these experiences, all right? So maybe it is a trap, and I call ghost frequencies. I don't call them ghosts. I say frequency. Why? Because everything in the existence of the planet has a frequency, okay? So a ghost would have a frequency, and that's what we use those, and think about it. When we're measuring ghosts, we're measuring energy. When we're measuring energy, we measure it in either EMF, electromagnetic fields, or a type of radio frequency and frequencies. All right, so that's why I like to use those terms, because I believe that those frequencies affect the human mind, and that's why some people see ghost and other people will never see ghost, because it's the frequency at that point in time that the brain then processes that information. Okay, I always give the example when you have my lectures. You have two people, they go to the southern plantation. The woman in the white comes down the stairs every day at 1 o'clock in the morning. The wife sees it, the husband doesn't see it. He thinks she's crazy, all right? She's open to that at that point in time. That frequency level at that point in time of the replay, like you said, is it a replay? That would be a replay in the environment, okay? Because we leave our energy everywhere. If I hit the lotto for $1 million, okay, yeah, hey, I'm rich for like a day. 1 million's nothing these days, right? But if I walk into a room of 20 pissed off people, what's going to happen when I walk into that room? Think about it. You take on that negative energy after a while.
Right.
When you walk into a room that's hot, as I like to call it, you feel it. People are mad, you feel it. You take that energy on. That's human energy. Think about it. So people are leaving their human energy in their houses all the time, because our house is the only place where we can really just let go and be ourselves. All right. I think there's only, in my opinion, the main place that I think that everybody's their authentic self, because we're not authentic at all half the time. Think about it. We have to put on fronts all day long. But when you get out of work or you go somewhere and you step into your car and you drive that little distance, I personally believe that's the only place you're your authentic self, because it's a decompression time. Think about it. When you're in your car, you can just let loose and chill, turn on the radio, think about your day, but you have no one bothering you. It's kind of like the only solace we get kind of in life sometimes is that spot. And when you're driving, if you don't have a car, maybe it's going to the bathroom. It's simple as that, going to the bathroom to get away from everybody, you know? So we leave these impressions all over the place. So if that is true, then you'll be dealing with impressions of a house. Now, there is intelligence, though. We come across the intelligent spirits. We deal with them all the time. Everywhere we go, like I'm gonna say, not everywhere, that's a lie, but a lot of the places that we go, we do deal with intelligence where things interact with us. All right. What we believe to be intelligent is, something that interacts. But this is my question on that, because I'm always asking questions. Is that ourselves interacting with ourselves?
That's what I was going to say, is how can you tell the difference between an intelligence and something you said like a poltergeist that is just something from the energy of the person,
Yeah, and this is the questions, you know what I mean? Because a poltergeist, think about it. Now, if we look at the history of poltergeist, it means noisy ghost, all right? That's German for noisy ghost. And they always say adolescent females were the ones that did it, blah, blah, blah. It's not like that anymore. I don't see that. What we see now is adults are stressed out. We're stressed out about money. We're stressed out about paying bills. We're stressed out about work. We're stressed out about our kids. Adults have so much stress on a daily basis. We give off that energy. So we have anxiety. Think about how many people just have anxiety or depression. I mean, in America these days, everybody has anxiety in one way or another, right? We all do. So they're giving off those feelings in a house. That creates a poltergeist, which then becomes their intelligent ghost, right? Because they're making things turn on and off. They're making things close. They're making such extreme behaviors happen that they think that their house is haunted. When we go and talk to them and talk them down, guess what ends up happening? We find out that they have turmoil in their life. Their life is so much turmoil. They're causing it to happen. It's not that there's ghosts in the house, because they never had these problems till all of a sudden an event happened in their life, okay? When you deal with a ghost, though, of intelligence, it's a little bit different, because people make extreme things happen, okay? As humans, we're extreme, I would say. So when you have those extreme behaviors in the paranormal happen, more than likely, unless you get into demonic things and those kind of things, and I don't like to use the word demonic at all. I just use positive and negative, because the minute you use the word demonic, you're talking about religion. And when you talk about religion, you're talking about the Catholic Church now, because that's who says those type of terms. And you're narrowing everything down. Okay, we're trying to be open-minded in everything, because you just don't know what it is. So when you get into intelligence of ghosts and locations, which we do interact with those things, they answer questions in the fact of you start getting the history of things from what's happened in the past. So if you ask a name, we might get a name of someone in the past, and they'll interact with us that way, and we get that name. Or if we start triggering certain questions of the past or triggering certain events, we may get that response in return. So hypothetically, we want to believe that we're dealing with that intelligence, that's the person and the essence and the soul, or whatever you want to call it. And I call it the soul frequency of the person, only because we wouldn't really know those answers. And they're backing up the claims of what we're getting. But there's still that weirdness, because I have actually caught on digital recorder, one of my investigators asking a question. You knew exactly what she wanted, and because when you ask a question, you know what they're looking for. Let's be honest. You ask a question, you know what you want the answer to be, and sure enough, she got the exact answer. And she did that multiple times through the night, and you could hear the way she prompted the question. She would get the answer in return. I believe personally that's telepathy. She was able to then put from her mind the answer on the recorder. And I can't explain how that happens, but let's just say, what's going to telepathy. I mean, that's PK. We're working in PK type behaviors, and we have that recorded. So that's when you have to really go in between all the cracks and take that Elmer's glue and glue them together, to be like, listen, you have to really dissect it. So we're dealing with all those things that you asked. You're dealing with the past, of a recording. We spend our energy in our house, giving off all that energy our whole entire life. We're going to have part of ourselves still in the house after we're gone. Let's be honest. Heirlooms and things like that, and special things that are to yourself. Maybe your clothes are still up in your closet. Those type of things. You're going to have people that maybe passed away on the property in the house that may still be present in that house. Like that was where they left their energy. So that's where they know. Okay. And then you're going to have a lot of that PK activity, especially in 2020, where everybody's stressed out about COVID, work. You're even going to get a paycheck? Are my kids going back to school in September? I don't know what's going on. So you have all that stress, and then you and your significant other now may not always hang out all the time, and you're stuck in that house, can't do anything, and all that arguing's happening because you're bored. So now we're seeing PK activity spike, which then people think that, oh my God, I got a ghost in my house, I got all this stuff happening. No, what's happening is you've created this energy yourself, and you're manifesting it in the environment. And now all this weird stuff starts happening because you watch Ghost Hunters International, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventurers, and you see all this crap on TV. And now in your mind, you've made this be real. Which, I mean, it makes sense. It just logically makes sense. When we don't understand something, we have to put it to something, always. And that's why people don't ever want to say, I don't know. Because people want to have that answer, that clear-cut answer. But everybody out there, listen, it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay. It doesn't make you right. It doesn't make you wrong. It makes you being honest of what you're talking about.
Now, you mentioned demons earlier, and how, they're you don't like the term demons because we probably don't understand exactly what we're dealing with. Now, what do you think? You said that there were positive spirits and negative spirits. Is that what you think that these demonic entities are? These tricksters? That they're just negative spirits or entities?
Yeah, I believe that they're negative entities. Now, when we get into demonic and demons, it's such an interesting topic. Unless you really know what you're talking about, there's no point in talking about it. I mean, this is the problem I see in the paranormal world, right, in general, is that if you want to be cool, all right, and what I mean, if you want to get likes on your pages, what does everybody become? What's the coolest thing you become in the paranormal world? A demonologist. A self-proclaimed demonologist. You didn't go to the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church didn't anoint you an exorcist. Okay, they didn't anoint you a demonologist. All right, you just read a book, and now you think you're a demonologist. Listen, that's on some people. That's your thing. That's your thing. But that's the problem, and that becomes a situation because when it comes to demonology, what a lot of people don't understand is you can need to understand the religions of demonology. So a lot of the demons that are in the Catholic side of this Catholic Church uses are actually pagan demons. Now, when you read into paganism, all right, which I'm big into paganism, that in Druidism, in the old religion, a lot of those demons are actually good demons. What happened was the church turned them into bad demons because they were fear-mongering. We all know that happened back in the day, all right? It was all about fear-mongering. So now you have these demons that kind of cross in between, that you say a trickster, right? But a trickster in the Catholic Church demon may not be a trickster in the pagan religion demon, okay? So like Satan is actually the pagan sun god, which is all about life and bringing life, but the church twisted that, okay? So when you get into the whole demon realm, you got to be very careful because there's so much to it. And reading a bunch of books that were written by people that may have just learned from reading another book and not actually going through the Catholic Church protocol of becoming an exorcist, of becoming a demonologist, understanding all that concept of it. I kind of just think that people are making them self-accredited. There's no backing to it. If I was to call myself a demonologist right now, I don't need a degree in it. I don't need a certificate, right? I just say, guess what? I'm on your radio show and I'm a demonologist. I'm not a demonologist whatsoever. You would never hear me say that because I'm not. I'm a researcher. I'm a paranormal researcher. That's it. I'm a Bigfooter. That's it. But, these people give themselves to be accredited. So when you're talking to demons, that's why I say negative and positive. I keep it very simple. Negative, the demons can fall, and demonic things can fall into the negative categories, obviously, because people have those issues. But also when you deal into the demonic things, you're dealing in religion, those people, then you need to find out, are they religious people? That's what you need to, as a paranormal person, we need to know all the religions because we have to follow those rules. When I go to your house, if you're Hindu, if you're Jewish, if you're Catholic, if you're pagan, we have to go by your guidelines in your house. Because if I'm to come in with my belief, right, and I always say, leave my belief britches at the door. We come in butt naked. We leave our beliefs at the door. We come in to do the work. But when we start getting into the religious aspects of it, you have to follow what the person believes. So if the person believes in demons, regardless of what I think, we have to work in that realm because they believe it. The power of belief is what makes anything happen, right? So if these people believe so heartily that they're possessed, if they believe so heartily that they're being stalked by a trickster demon, guess what? It's gonna happen regardless. Regardless if there's actually a demon there. Remember how we talked about PK behavior and poltergeists? It's the same thing because they created something out of nothing. Because the only thing that they do is believe. Just like I was telling you about Bigfoot believers, right? When people believe in Bigfoot so much, a blurry picture that has nothing in it, that's pareidolia, is a Bigfoot to people. When it's nothing, it's nothing. So when you get into demonology, it's a whole different category in itself. What I can say to your fans is that be very careful on who you trust with it. And be very careful on who you speak to about it. Because anybody can go on Google and learn to become a demonologist on Google. But you need to have people that have the accreditations behind it. And I'm not talking about a fake paranormal degree that they spend $100 on and got a certificate because they're trying to make money. These groups try to make money certifying paranormal investigators because there's no such thing. But make sure they have an accredited with the church itself. Maybe an ordained minister that's gone through the church, and the church has said, listen, you can be a demonologist. We're going to accredit you to be a demonologist, but not a regular ordained minister that takes a test and now they're a demonologist. I mean, that's just my opinion. People are going to frown upon it, and that's okay. I don't care. But if you're having someone, when you're talking about something that's serious as demons, you may also be talking about a mental disorder, okay? Schizophrenia, mental disorders. You may need a psychologist also in this situation to make sure that the people are psychologically well. So that's, I mean, when it gets to that level of extreme, that's when you really need to get the people in place that actually know what they're talking about. And that's just my opinion, because you don't know what you're dealing with. You just don't.
Now, I've heard accounts of paranormal researchers that have, gone to a place to check out a location, and they've actually gone home, and this entity or whatever they're dealing with at the place has followed them. I've heard that from quite a few different accounts from different paranormal researchers or people not necessarily researchers, but have gone to a location that has supposedly been haunted or had activity, and then they take it home with them, and then they start experiencing strange activity. Is this anything that you've ever come across?
Oh yeah, we come across this one. Sorry. We come across this a lot, actually. This is a common thing. I always make a joke at my lectures saying that you can go to the bathroom at Burger King and then you leave there with a ghost. And it's true. Like, once again, this is what I believe in. What you give off is what you receive. Okay? And what I mean by that is, if you're nice to people, people will be nice in return, right? If I'm a dick to you, you're going to be a dick to me in return. So if there is some kind of entity in an area, okay, they're all over the place, you know what I mean? One of the places I train for a lot of my endurance events, I do endurance events and things like that, is a battlefield. All right, it's a very spiritual place. I love history. I'm a history nerd. American Revolution and Civil War are like my main times in American history. So I train there. Now it'd be very easy for one of the soldiers, if they relate to me in some way, shape, or form, to then attach to me because they're interested in me and come home as a clinger. Okay, so it would make sense that whatever energy that you're giving off, just like it's the laws of attraction. You know what I mean? So we do find in the paranormal field that, yeah, sometimes these people don't have anything that happens to them, and they go to a certain place, and for whatever reason they were open at that point in time, mentally open, their guard was down, very chill, whatever needed to happen to invite that thing in comes in. I think a lot of the times that people don't understand, though, is like, I use Ouija boards all the time. Okay, I do. And they're not, people get, oh my God, you're opening portals, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say this to those people, though, all right? What's the difference as a paranormal researcher if you use a Ouija board, right? Or if I use this, my phone recording my EVP session, all right? So if I have a digital recorder and I put it down and start saying, is there anybody here, okay? Or if I use a Ouija board and say, is anybody here? You tell me what the difference is. One, I'm burning calories. So when I use a Ouija board, at least I'm getting calories burned. I might lose a pound by the end of the night. The difference is that there is no difference. Your intent is to communicate with a spirit. My intent is the same. There's no difference. So when people use that argument saying about Ouija boards are scary, but then they're using digital recorders, K2 meters, EMF detectors, doing the same thing, what's the difference? There is none. There is none. So these people then, like myself, because I'm one of those people, we go out to communicate with spirit. Well, how do we know that once we start communicating with spirit, they may be interested in us in one way or another, positive or negative? All right? We can tell them all we want. Please stay here. Don't follow us home. That's what a lot of us say. That a lot of paranormal people will say, like, we respect you. We're only here to, communicate and talk to you. Please stay where you are. Blah blah blah. We're saying that just to basically, it's a cover our butts, I guess. But what makes it fact that they're going to stay? They're not, because our intent was to use our little digital recorders and phones or whatever we're using. And I don't ever use my phone, but I'm just using an example to communicate with that spirit. Now we've opened that line of communication. How are we the ones to close it? Maybe they don't want to close it. Maybe we want to close it, because then we're like, all right, well, we've been here for 20 minutes. EVP sessions all done. Gary, leaving room, close it. I close it by clicking the recorder, right? I close my side of it. But how does that spirit know that they want to close it? They don't. It's on their terms. Because once again, we're dealing with things that we don't have any clue about. Listen, humans make this terminology, right? We're the ones that created the EVP. We're the ones that created the word ghost. We're the ones that create all this stuff through terminology. We created Bigfoot. We created UFOs. All right. But that's all it is a word. That's it. We have no understanding of anything. We can say it's energy, we can say it's frequency, we can say it's vibration, we can say. What I always say about paranormal fields, all of them, and I'm one of the biggest people in this, we talk bullshit all day long, all of us, because we don't have the facts. We have no facts. Everything is based on theory, which is great. We can talk physics, we can talk, animal behavior, we can talk ufology and science and, reverse engineering and super soldiers, and we can talk all this all day long. We all do, because it's interesting. But where's the fact? We still have no facts. And like we were talking about a little earlier, how do we know an intelligent ghost is actually a ghost and not ourselves answering our own questions? We don't have that fact. So it's all based on theory. You know what I'm saying? So it would make sense of us not being able to close that connection. So we make a connection with a possible energy and frequency, or ghosts as you like to call them. They may not want to end that connection now, even though we did. So they come home with us. And now we're dealing with that at home. Because on our end, we're like, oh, well, we closed that. It's over, blah, blah, blah. But then here we go. Or what about this take on it? Maybe we're still the ones that created that entity to begin with. How do we know that when we were communicating in that room, in that insane asylum, that we didn't create that entity right there and then with our mind? So we think that something followed us home. In reality, that's what we created through PK, through mind speak, through all these frequencies, because we wanted to be scared and we wanted to get answers or whatever our reasoning was. We don't know. So that's the interest that we'll never know. And that's where it comes down to. So yes, those things do come home with people. Is it a ghost? Is it a demon? Is it yourself? We don't know. It's only what we want to believe.
Man, yeah, that gets deep, and it's very fascinating to think about. Now, you mentioned Ouija board, it made me think of these. I was watching something on YouTube about a cursed box that people are getting from eBay that supposedly has some sort of demonic entity in it. Have you done any research into this or anything like that?
I know what you're talking about. The name of the box is like, I can't think of it, but I see it. I know what you're talking about. I right now I haven't come across anybody personally that's come to our team or I know that's used this devil's box. I saw it on one of the TV shows too. And then they have the mirrored box too with all the mirrors in it and things like that. I mean, listen, we use all this different weird equipment, right? We use all sorts of things. A devil's box, I don't know. The only mental thing, the only logical thing I could think of, once again, and I try to keep everything logical, is that if I bought any kind of box, I could probably go to Michael's and get a nice little wooden box, put some designs on it, right? Put it down in a room. Whatever my intent is to use that box could happen, right? Possible. It's the intent. Paranormal work is your intent of anything you do, right? It's in life. If it's, our lives are based on our intent to do successful things in life, right? And live our life, whatever our intent is. So I could hypothetically see where someone buys an overpaid box on eBay, Estee, wherever the hell they're getting them, Amazon, and then you put that down, and because it's called a devil's box or whatever it's called, right? Your intent already you're like, when you buy that box, your mind is already set in. You're like, oh, right, this is a demon box. There could be a devil in this and just blah, blah, blah. So your intent is already there right off the bat. You haven't even thought even another thing about it other than this is what I'm seeing. So I believe that, yes, maybe it's possible that our intent would make something happen for any kind of object and not even just that box. Think about it. We use K2 meters, right? We use EMF detectors, EDI plus meters, Mel meters. Once again, my question is still this. We know that our bodies give off EMF, right? That's a proven fact. We have an EMF reading, an EMF field. How do we still know, though, that we don't set those meters off ourselves? With our intent. I'm not saying it's totally conscious. Subconsciously, it's anything's a possibility, right? So if subconsciously people are psychic and can talk to dead people, right? Empaths can feel the feelings in a room, right? Clairvoyance, clairaudience, they can hear and see dead things, hear ghosts talk, right? All this stuff. So how is it then all these people can do these actions, all right? So how do you know then if people can talk to dead people, we can't make all these meters go off ourselves? Let's be honest. And these are the same people doing the research, right? Think about it, myself included. You know, we want to think that we're talking to ghosts a lot of times, right? We want to think all this stuff because we're in scary haunted places or cool historic buildings, or people are out in cemeteries taking pictures of orbs, and people debate orbs all day long. But at the end of the day, still, what we talked about not even 10 minutes ago, the fact of the matter is we still don't know anything other than the human vocabulary that we've made for this field.
Man, it's such a synchronicity that you said orbs, because I was just about to say I've kept you so long, but I have one more question about orbs.
Yeah, you're fine.
That was it. I wanted to ask you about orbs because, you know, so many people have, you know, claimed to see these orbs that are associated with hauntings or paranormal activity. And I'm just wondering, what's your take on, you know, orbs? They have supposedly pictures of these orbs that, you know, they could be dust for all we know. But, you know, I've also heard accounts where these people have seen the orbs with their physical eyes, and, and you know, that there's some other kind of feeling associated with it that when they're around them. So what are your thoughts on orbs?
Or the orbology, as I like to call it. Yeah, you covered it all yourself, honestly. Now, I'm going to go full circle here. You ready for this? When we go Bigfooting, I have seen orbs in the woods. I've seen lights pop up in the woods. It's a common thing that you actually hear about. People that were hikers are in the woods. I've gone hiking, just go summon a mountain just to kick off a number on my list. And we've seen lights in the woods that you can't explain, and you know what you're seeing. When we investigate houses, I call them paralights as a joke, like a fun terminology, like, oh, look at the paralights, like fireflies. You see orbs pop, and you see them with your eyes, all right? For my team, and this is only the way I do it, is that if orbs are caught in pictures, all right, like you just said, we can debunk dust all day long. We can debunk frequencies, energy. We can debunk that. That's been proven. I use a professional photographer for my stuff, so they give me written reports. So if we take a picture and there's some kind of, you know, orb or something, they're going to give me a full digital report, because that's what they went to school for. All their credibility and all that stuff is for that. Listen, I didn't go to school for photography. I didn't go to school for videography. I didn't go to school for that. I went to school for animal behavior, animal science, and those kind of things. So yes, this is where it gets kind of wishy-washy though, all right? I do have pictures that when you look at the orb itself, it looks like a cell, a nucleus, with an epidermis. It has a break around the cell itself, and then it has its own light source. So when you look at it, you're like, all right, that looks like a nuclei. That looks like a cell. I'm going back to college now when I'm sitting there looking at slides, all right? When I see something like that, I'm kind of like, that could be weird, only because of how it looks. Now, when people take pictures of a million balls of something in a cemetery, unfortunately, I'm like, listen, that could be dust, that could be allergens, that could be, you know, pollen, that could be a million different things, because once again, you can't control the environment outside. You can't control the variables. There's too many variables involved right there. And we know for a fact that once digital photography started happening, we started getting all these orbs on digital photography. Now, when you use film though, and you take film photography, we weren't catching these things as much. you know, those nice Panasonics and things like that, you know, they're god awful expensive now just to get the film. So, you know, I kind of go by, if it looks like a cell and it looks like a nucleus and it looks like something very weird and it's very like when you look at it, you're like, wow, this looks like I'm looking at a slide in a lab right now. I put it as interesting. I don't say it's an orb. I say interesting. That's it. Now, people do have those feelings, like you said, and I've witnessed it myself. I personally have never. I can't attest to that. I've never seen an orb. When I see them, I don't get feelings for it. I'm like, oh, paralites, that's cool. I leave it at that. But the people that have feelings for that there could be something to that because they're seeing it with their physical eye, and then maybe they're reading the environment at the same time. All right, maybe like an empath. An empath would be a perfect situation in that situation. The only other question I would have in that situation would be, when you saw the orb, did that automatically give you a feeling by seeing it to begin with? So you saw it, you kind of maybe got startled, maybe something happened because you didn't expect to see it. Maybe you were thinking something and then you saw it and then it made you feel a type of way. So there's a lot of, once again, variables. There's so many variables with that. But yeah, I mean, it depends. When it comes to orbs, it's very individual for me personally, because I see so many pictures of orbs and people send them to me all the time, and I'm just like, thank you for sending me your picture. I don't know, and I leave it at that, because I don't, you know, whatever they believe is what they believe, and I'm not here to make them think anything differently. Now, you talked about facing orbs. That's once again the issue I have with pareidolia. If our brains are going to read anything that they want to read, so I've seen orbs that have faces in them, and I'm kind of like, listen, is my brain making that happen right now? Because we have to always put something to something. I leave it as, if you believe there's a face in an orb, that's on you. I'm not going to change your mind, and thank you for sharing the photo, because thank you. I don't know. Because orbs you can debunk too easy. Anything that you can debunk so easy as an orb, we need to be very careful. So on my team, like I said, if you see them with your eyes, that's credible, because that's an event happening. We're seeing that live time with our eyes, just like when we're investigating and we have an event happen with, like, a door may shut, a chair may slide across the floor, maybe we get touched or pinched. That's happening live time. That's our jobs as investigators and researchers, is to report those things happening, right? That's our job. So if I'm seeing an orb with my eyes, I put more credibility to that because we're seeing it with our own eyes. Other than if we take a picture, there's too much then, because I don't know what the environment was. I don't know what the temperature was. I don't know what the humidity or barometric pressure was at that point in time. I don't know if there maybe was an EMF spike in the house. Maybe the furnace went on and kicked up stuff somewhere, you know what I mean? Maybe one of my investigators walked by a room and kicked up enough dust on the outside that changed the wind currents in the room. I don't know the wind currents in the whole house. I don't know any of that information. So maybe this is how we're getting these weird pictures. I don't know. I can't control it like a lab. But what I can do is say, listen, we see them with our eyes. Seeing is believing, right? That's what we say, seeing is believing. I'm not going to discredit that anymore, because I'm like, you saw it. So do I say, though, it's a ghost? No, I don't. What I say is, we saw an event happen. We saw an orb. It was an event. But it doesn't mean it was a ghost. If people want to believe it's a ghost, that's on them. That's them. I don't look at it that way, because doing scientific research, doing paranormal research, it's our job to be like, listen, we have to have the facts that back up what that orb is. If I was to give that to my friends, skeptics, I have a lot of skeptic friends and I love them to death and they rip me apart daily, but it's good that they do, because it makes me be a better investigator, I think. If I was to they're going to rip me apart. They'd be like, Gary, you tell me how that's a ghost right now. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I have bullshit. Ready for my bullshit story? Here we go. And that's what it comes down to. And I'm honest about it, you know? So, you know, if people want to believe that, that's great. I mean, I don't care if you believe it. But for us, because we do things, you know, scientifically, and when I say scientifically, you can't use a scientific method in ghost hunting. You can't, because you can't do it. You can't recreate that experiment over and over and over. It doesn't work that way. But if you try to do best practice as close as you can, we say, if we see orbs, it's an event that happened. So, and we leave it at that, because there could be something to it. There really could be. Because, I mean, I can't explain why I see lights in the woods. Swamp gas, maybe? No, there's no swamps. Maybe rocks are giving off, maybe there's some kind of geological thing happening where lights can come up through the rocks, through the ground, and then we can see them. Maybe, I don't know. So something is happening. So because I'm telling the facts of the matter, I leave it like, listen, we saw lights. We saw what looked like an orb, okay? And I leave it at that.
Very well said. Man, that's fascinating information. It's all getting us closer to understanding the, mysterious nature of our reality. Gary, so if people are more interested in finding out more about you, they can go to TriCityNewYorkParanormal.com, right?
Yeah, if you're interested in what we do, and I hope you enjoyed the show, you can come on Facebook. You can go to Tri-City New York Paranormal Society on Facebook. We have a website as well. You can check out what we've caught in the past. I have to update it recently. I've been kind of lazy on that because I've been so busy in Bigfoot, like radio right now. It's insane.
Yeah, you got tons of awesome pictures too, man.
Yeah, we do a lot of work. I mean, we're boots on the ground. That's our motto, boots on the ground. The cause, the focus, the truth. That's what we follow. So we do that to a T. Like nothing. We don't bullshit anybody. We just tell you the way it is. As if you're into Bigfoot, all right. If you go to New York Bigfoot Society on Facebook, it's updated all the time. We actually have a radio show tomorrow, NYBS radio show. You can find us on Blog Talk Radio. We actually do stream. Now we're doing live streams on the Facebook page. It's coming out great. We have a very large audience that loves to learn about cryptids and Bigfoot and other things. So I have my team. I have an author on my team, Kenny W. Irish, the crypto-punkologist himself. He's wrote a bunch of books on cryptozoology. So he's my co-host, and he's very knowledgeable in all cryptids. I kind of stay within certain cryptids because I'm more about finding out the facts of a cryptid. But he knows so many different monsters, and it's interesting. It's interesting to know all that stuff. So we do that. So if you're interested, give us a shout out, and if you have anything you want to ever throw by us, feel free to message us. We get so many messages a day of these people talking about these subjects. We're here for you. You know what I mean? And my main thing I'm going to leave you with is, as always, if you go into the woods, and I always focus on the woods most of the time, please be safe. Please be safe. All right. It's very important that you know the woods, all right? You understand how the woods work, weather changes in a second, have the right gear in your pack. We live in the age of gear. You can go to REI, Eastern Mountain Sports, all these cool Dick's Sporting Goods. You can get anything you want now in gear. So always have the right gear when you go into the woods. Having the survival means, because you don't know what can happen. You really don't. Especially if you're going to start trying to Bigfoot. Definitely give things a go. You know what I mean? And if you give things a shot, just either find someone that knows what they're talking about. And just be safe. That's the main thing, because like I say, there's so many, our forest rangers, especially in New York, are maxed out. We don't have as many, and there's a lot of hikers in the woods that don't know what they're doing right now because of the pandemic. So they're just everyday people, and now they're getting rescued daily, and it's sad. And the big thing I have is leave no trace. Don't leave your garbage in the woods. It's awful. We're seeing nothing but garbage right now. So please bring a spare bag with you if you go hiking, and because we have to clean up after other people. We're the ambassadors of the woods, and just be safe and have fun with it. Just have fun, that's kind of where I leave it. Be safe, have fun, and as always, keep it squatchy.
Yeah, very good, Gary. Thank you so much. Great information, great advice. And I'd love to have you back on in the future. We just barely scratched the surface of all this stuff,
Oh yeah, there's so much to talk about, and I have so many ufology stories from New York. So we do that, and I've had some crazy ones. And like I say, we have our project. Hopefully by next year, I'll have the data on the Bigfoot Communication Project. And we're 100% back into ghost hunting. We actually just ghost hunted last week at one of our stomping grounds. So we're doing COVID, doing the COVID procedures. So it's a little bit different. We hold a lot of events and raise a lot of money for these historic places to keep them open. But unfortunately with COVID, everything's kind of screwy right now. New York is screwy. It's, we're kind of still on lockdown or up here. I can't even go to
everywhere
the gym.
screwy.
I know. I just want to go to the gym, and I can't even go to the gym. But yeah. So I mean, yeah, follow us, and yeah, I'll be happy to come back, and hopefully we could talk about those subjects, and we'll have more data. That's the key thing, is we'll have more information, more data, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I have an I don't know for anything, and we can learn from each other. So it's about learning from each other. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, very well said. All right, Gary, excellent information, and we'll see you next time. Have a great night.
Yeah, thanks everybody, and have a great, and be safe. The key thing is be safe. Deuces.